I've asked myself this question for almost a decade as it's been going on now. Why does Hollywood hate its fans? Why does it hate the people who take an established franchise and make it successful? I've never understood this. See, Hollywood is guilty of making the same mistake for almost a decade. What they'll do is they'll take an established franchise, a beloved franchise. They'll bring on new people to helm that franchise and to make new stuff in that franchise. And the new stuff is completely terrible in almost every aspect of quality. It doesn't respect the source material whatsoever. They take source material, and instead of honoring it and bringing the fans and then having the fans bring more people in, they just completely say, well, no, the source material is terrible. I don't like it. And then they rewrite it in their own image. And then the fans who outnumber these people go, I don't like it. And they drive sales all the way down. Hollywood has been doing this for almost a decade. It's amazing that they're still in business. It doesn't make any sense. You look at what Star Wars is doing by announcing that Rey is going to return. Rey is one of the most hated characters in all of Star Wars. Not because Daisy Ridley in particular. Some people have said she's a horrible actress. Other people don't particularly care. But they hated what they did with her character, what they made her into. She was a Mary Sue. She didn't have any real struggles. She was basically gifted everything and could do everything out of the gate. She didn't really have a redeeming character. She didn't have a character. As far as most people are concerned, she was terrible. Of course, there's always going to be somebody who like them, the freaking Raylos or whatever you want to call them. They're just weirdos as far as I'm concerned. They're only concerned about relationships to the point where they're stalking the actors and actresses. Weirdos. But Hollywood consistently does this. They've done this all throughout Marvel. They've done this all throughout Star Wars. And Disney's the most guilty of this. But they're not the only ones. You look at what Paramount has done with Grease. Grease is a beloved franchise. What did they do? They made it into feminist propaganda. It's not entertainment. It's just, look at these feminist teenagers in the 1950s. Because that was totally a big thing. That was totally something to do with the original two Grease movies. Hollywood continues to show contempt for its audiences. It's not that they just ignore audiences. They show active contempt for us. No matter what you're a fan of. They're so obsessed with modern cultural Marxism that they have to insert it into everything they do. And they're governed by it. They've got all sorts of advocacy groups that show up on sets and, talk to them and are on their boards. They run the show. And so the average person, when they go, I can't figure out why this is bad. The average person looks at it and they go, I don't understand why this is bad. Well, that's why it's bad, because it's being run with a literal cultural agenda. Admitted several times. It's not a conspiracy. Don't let any news website or interviewer or anybody tell you that this stuff is just a conspiracy. No, this is stuff that has been openly stated and said to be a good thing by the people who produce these shows and movies and games and whatever. I don't know why I'm including games in this. I guess I should have made this, why does the media hate fans? Why does mainstream entertainment hate fans? But that was too long of a title, so I'm just sticking to Hollywood. But I will talk about the entertainment industry as a whole, because it's all the same. It's all contempt for established fan bases, established fans. It's just contempt for people who help make it what it is. They don't respect them, they don't listen to them, and they constantly do this. And so then when they walk away and they don't make money, what do? Do they apologize to the fans? No. They don't apologize to fans. They don't apologize to actual customers that they make stuff for. Heaven forbid. No. What they do is they double and triple down. They call them racists. They call them sexist. They call them homophobic. They call them trolls. They call them bots. They disavow them because they think they're a small minority, even though every conceivable metric says the opposite. They have actual contempt because the majority do not agree with what they're doing. And even people who do agree with what they're doing, they're going, I'm not entertained. So they're losing on every single front. And they're losing billions of dollars doing this. They have been for over a decade now. This thing has to crater out across entertainment. It has to. It's why I'm so excited for independent stuff in the Iron Age. But it does baffle me. I wish somebody could explain to me who has been in Hollywood and who has been in many of these studios why they believe thoroughly that continuing on this path is a good thing, and why there is such contempt for paying customers. In any other industry, if you have contempt for your customers, you fail. Your business fails. You have nothing but an empire of dirt. But in Hollywood, in mainstream entertainment, you're either on the cultural Marxism train or you're not. And if you're not, like most people are, then you're treated with all manner of contempt. Your money's no good here, they tell you. But money's money. That's a principle of capitalism, which these people don't prescribe to begin with. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's that the people who run these companies aren't capitalist. They're anti-capitalist. So maybe they secretly want to destroy these studios. It seems a little elaborate, but I don't know anymore. Because they seem destined to fail. Whenever they get a success, and this is why I take such a black-pilled stance with stuff like the Mario movie and John Wick and all of that. The reason that I'm so black-pilled on that is because despite the fact that that's more of the content that audience want, Hollywood never learns from it. They release something like that every once in a great while, and it's average at best. Because their heart isn't behind it. The types of people who create those things are more traditional creators, and they're not the rule anymore in Hollywood. They're the exception to the rule. The Steven Spielbergs, the George Lucases, the Wes Cravens, the Shining guy passed away several years ago. Really famous director. Can't think of his name. Stanley Kubrick. There we go. Your Alfred Hitchcocks, your Robert Zemeckis's, any number of previous directors, producers, writers. Those types of people aren't the norm in Hollywood anymore. They've been replaced by pure cultural Marxist ideologues, woke ideologues, people whose only concern is that women are being elevated, that gay people are being elevated, that black people are being elevated, that transgendered people are being elevated, and then they don't tell any story. They just have characters that look the part, and they go, see, we've got representation, we're good people. Well, no, you're not good people. A lot of them have very contempt for fans, that's the first thing, but you're also not good storytellers. If there's a good story, people don't care about the ideology. People don't care about ideology in general. If they believe in ideology, then they just live it out. They don't need a movie to reaffirm it for them, or a book, or music, or video games, or podcasts. They don't need any affirmation from outside sources. They just believe what they believe. At least that's how it should be. But Hollywood is convinced that they need to use these films as a vehicle, and television subsequently, to push cultural Marxism, to push wokeness, to push feminism. And it's frankly embarrassing, because all this time and money could be spent telling some of the greatest stories ever told. Warner Brothers is celebrating their 100th this year. I made a video about it, I think last month or the month before. And one of the things I may have mentioned, I don't remember, but what bothers me is their slogan is celebrating every story. But most of the stories that they've made in the modern day have sucked. Most of the Hollywood stories that exist today are terrible because they're so ideologically based. They don't have a solid structure. They're often incoherent and riddled with plot holes that many people point out. And if you point any of this out, you're labeled a bigot, a racist, a homophobe, a sexist, or any number of insults. Even though you're just concerned about a good story being told. That's all. You're not any sort of istophobe. You're just a person who likes a good story, and you're not being told a good story. Hollywood is in such decline. The reason that you're seeing a shift away from putting movies on streaming and back into theaters is because the streaming is so expensive and there's such little available. They want to use the theater as a draw for audiences, the theatrical experience. I wish they would take the same approach with television, but they don't. For linear television, they just dump TV shows on streaming. They don't care about linear broadcast TV, although I've been a proponent for linear broadcast TV my whole life. It's all I've known. I don't subscribe to any streaming services. I miss linear broadcast television. You know, that's what I've always had, whether it's cable or in the case now phasing between cable and just internet TV streaming. So technically I do have a streaming service, but it's not on demand streaming, it's linear broadcast streaming, because I like that experience. I'm one of maybe 5 people left in the world that do, but I still love linear broadcast TV. I hate the commercials, but I love the experience. I love the bumpers. I love getting excited to watch a new show. I love flipping through the guide to see what's on. Hollywood could use that experience and really promote some awesome shows that they can also put on streaming, but they don't do that. They just marathon the most popular shows. I've talked about this dozens of times. They have such contempt for their audiences, and I can't understand that, because again, any other industry that has this much contempt for their audiences doesn't survive. But yet Hollywood constantly gets money, and I know people say, oh, BlackRock, Vanguard, all these investment groups, they don't have endless money. They can't supplement this forever. And the other reason I'm black-pilled about these successful movies is because I feel like all they do is fund more cultural Marxist / woke movies. So when you get a Mario movie or a John Wick, the amount of billions of dollars that those successful projects bring in fund what they really want to make. They don't want to make those movies. Hollywood does not want to make those movies. And I know what you're saying. Well, Koopa, if they didn't want to make those movies, then why do they make those movies? That's not what I'm saying. The directors, writers, producers, that small team wanted to make that movie. The studios as a whole want to make movies that are ideological. And the directors usually have to push back and say, no, that's not what this is about. And thank goodness there are a few that do. But Hollywood cares more about virtue signaling than they do about telling a good story. So they use those movies to supplement all of their woke crap. That's what they do all the time. And that's why I don't go to see them. That's why I didn't go to see the Mario movie despite being a massive Mario fan. I didn't want to give any credence to that system. And it doesn't matter because has it made $1 billion yet? I don't know if the Mario movie's made that much, but it's made close to $1 billion. And they're going to use that money to fund further projects that people don't want. Obviously, they're going to continue to make Mario movies. They're going to continue to make John Wicks and probably Top Gun and Avatar. But they're not going to make more movies that people want. And if they do, I hope they do. I'm not saying I don't want them to make more movies that people want. I want them, obviously, to make more movies that audiences resonate with. But what I'm saying is I don't believe that Hollywood wants to. They're going to do what they want to do. If the last Star Wars Celebration is any indication, Star Wars is on a path of just total annihilation. There's not even a hint of reversing course. Not even a grain of salt. I don't care what any of the rumors say. Until we actually see some people fired and rearranged and people come in who say, yeah, this stuff isn't working, let's do something new and something that isn't ideological but rather adheres to what Star Wars actually is and what made it a multi-billion-dollar franchise. Until somebody comes in and does that, it's dead and the fans have turned their back. And they may never come back because it might take years at this pace. If they're going to insist on doing what they've been doing, it's going to take them years. So why the contempt? Why the hatred? And then they want to make you out to be the hateful one. I don't hate anybody. I disagree with various groups of people being more conservative Christian. I absolutely do. But all I care about is a good story that entertains me. I will spend money on a good story that entertains me. But Hollywood doesn't want to do that. They want to just tell me how wrong I am for holding my beliefs and why their beliefs are the best. That's all they want to do. And that's all they've wanted to do for over a decade. And I'm sick and tired of it. And I know multiple people are sick and tired of it. You see multiple of the pop culture channels that cover this stuff. They're all tired of it. Many of them have said they've walked away from Star Wars entirely. They don't give it a second chance. Why give money to people who have contempt for you? In the hopes that it might be good? In the hopes of, or the desire to not be totally cynical about it? Look, the reality is that if you're cynical about it, it's because they've made you cynical about it. It's because they've destroyed this thing that was so good in the past with their own arrogance, with their own narcissism, with their own woke ideology, with their own insistence upon themselves. It's not your fault, it's theirs. It always has been. So I don't understand why people keep holding out hope for this. I'm not saying there is no hope. I mean, it will, but it'll take decades. It'll take lots of replanning, but they just keep rubber stamping and green lighting projects years in advance. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 movies in advance. And then they can't cancel any of them. It's this whole ordering in bulk thing with Hollywood is such a stupid business model because of how the culture changes and how views change and how audiences change. You got to be examining what audiences want instead of greenlighting several films in advance. It's such a stupid thing to do. You got to make sure that the film is going to be a success before you do that. But they don't seem to do that anymore. They seem to just rubber stamp and greenlight everything. Disney, you know how many live action Disney? I just found out today that Disney's doing Lilo and Stitch live action. I nearly had an aneurysm because I love Lilo and Stitch. Lilo and Stitch, for me, in my childhood / middle school years, was one of Disney's best franchises. It combined sci-fi with a wholesome family-style message. It dealt with a lot of core messages that weren't controversial. It wasn't truly ideological. It dealt with a very real issue. It dealt with stuff like child protective services, in a sense. It dealt with the relationship between a kid and their pet. It dealt with the relationship between a kid and her sister and the idea of family. The whole core theme of Lilo and Stitch was family, and that's what made it so beautiful. They can't tell a family story today, especially not a live-action remake of a masterpiece. Nobody wanted a live-action remake of Lilo and Stitch. Nobody. Not even the hardest of core fans. It's just a bad idea. But they're doing that with Peter Pan. They're doing that with Snow White. They're doing that with Little Mermaid. They've already done it with Aladdin, with Beauty and the Beast, with Jungle Book. All the ones they've done have failed. And instead of pumping the brakes and saying no and buying out those contracts, they're still going ahead with them. And they're dumping the ones on Disney Plus that they don't think will be good. They are Disney. When I say they, Disney has become one of the worst companies in all of media, from being one of the best, being the leader of family entertainment. They have completely destroyed themselves. And the only thing they have left is remaking stuff that was successful instead of following the business model that produced original content that was good. The business model that produced movies like Lilo and Stitch, Emperor's New Groove, Atlantis the Lost Empire, Tarzan, Mulan in that later half of Disney, that's the business model they should have stuck with. But Bob Iger decided that's not what he wanted to do. He basically wanted to make Pixar light, and that's effectively what he did. There's no distinguishing between Disney and Pixar anymore when it comes to animation. They both look the same. The last traditionally animated Disney film was The Princess and the Frog. I still haven't seen it. I don't know that I want to see it. But people like that visually, but Disney won't do it because I think it's more expensive. But they should be doing that because there's a lot of good ideas there. There are fairy tales that they could still adapt, but heaven forbid they do it today with today's cultural sensitivities. You can't have a damsel in distress anymore. That's disrespectful to women. Even though a lot of women I know go, "What are you talking about? The damsel in distress trope is romantic. It's good storytelling. It's not demeaning to women. It's actually very empowering because a lot of the times you see these women are helping to fight for their own freedom." But Disney undermines all of that due to cultural Marxism and their prescribance to it. I don't even know if prescribance is a word. I'm going with it regardless. It's just terrible. There is hope. I mean, I've suggested multiple times things that they could do to fix it, but they have to be willing themselves to do that. They have to be willing to stop losing money and start actually listening to fans. But I've never seen an industry more arrogant as to triple down on what's causing it to lose money. I've never in my entire almost 31 years of life seen that. I've never seen this. And the fact that it hasn't collapsed is astounding to me, which tells me it's being artificially propped up by venture capital and by investment, because it's not bringing in revenue. If I'm an investor, I've got serious questions for a company like Disney or Lucasfilm. And they already do. You saw the last disaster that was the last Disney investors meeting. The question is, are the investors actually going to put their money where their mouth is? Or are they going to keep investing in this sinking ship? It's anyone's guess at this point. But they're just in the red everywhere. The parks are doing bad. The cruise ships seem to be doing bad. Movies and television, forget about it. They have no investment in movies and television other than the established. Their formula is something Star Wars series, no movies, but eventually there's going to be movies with Rey. And then with Marvels, it's the mix of the movies and the TV shows, and continue to release those in their phases. And those are continuing to fail. And then live action remakes. The only original Disney branded stuff is live action remakes. And that's embarrassing because they used to create such good original animated films. But even the original animated films failed. The last original animated film they did was was it Strange Worlds? That completely went under the radar and bombed. And some people were suggesting that Disney sabotaged it. Disney didn't sabotage it. It was just terrible. And I think they're doing another original animated movie that looks kind of like Inside Out. It deals with elementals or something. It just looks terrible. It looks generic. It doesn't look original. It doesn't look like it has passion behind it like past Disney projects. Because I guarantee you the conditions of animating for Disney are not good. I guarantee that. So there's probably not much love there. But you know where there is love is at Skydance. Over with Apple and John Lasseter. There's a lot of hope coming out of there and out of Illumination. Not to say these companies don't engage in their own levels of wokeness, but I think there's enough people there that know you actually have to sell movies. So while it might be over for Disney and for Star Wars and Marvel, it's not over for these other companies. Somebody eventually has to break through the fog. And I think that's exactly what's happening. This hatred and contempt for fans and for paying customers needed to stop yesterday. And the tide is definitely shifting in the favor of the fans. Because again, they're the whole reason the product is produced in the first place. How do you not get this concept and be a Bob Iger? How do you do that? And now there's rumors that they're going to be redoing parts of Disney World. They're going to be redoing stuff like Frontierland because it's too white. They're going to get rid of stuff like the Country Bear Jamboree. Those are all just rumors, so I can't confirm or deny them. But based on what they did with Splash Mountain, there seems to be no end to the amount of deconstruction they're doing at Disney. It's just terrible. But Hollywood is doing it in other places as well. There's rumors that this new Harry Potter show is going to be ultra diverse. It's not going to be accurate to the source material. They're going to change the races of the character. The storylines might be more accurate, but they're going to artificially change because J.K. Rowling said that this character was black, even though, I think she said Hermione was black, even though she's not. I'm not a Harry Potter guy, never have been. But boy, do I remember Harry Potter mania back in elementary school. Boy, howdy. It was everywhere. Every book fair, the top-selling books were all Harry Potter. Every single book fair done in my elementary school. Harry Potter. You saw kids carrying Harry Potter books everywhere. And admittedly, they had some of the coolest art on their books, but I never read them, never watched the movies, never cared. Never was allowed to, because growing up in a Christian home, Harry Potter, you could put 2 and 2 together. But this new series, everybody's like, oh, it's going to be great. And it's like, well, it's still woke Hollywood, so don't count your chickens before they hatch. Don't get too excited. So, anyways, that's it for this Koopa Talks. I've rambled long enough. I know this felt very samey to a lot of the ones that I've made, but really, there's not much to talk about because the needle in Hollywood is moving, but significant changes aren't being made. I'm really looking forward to getting to a point to where I can make a video talking about the positive changes that are happening in entertainment, because I want to cover positive entertainment, and I'm going to be doing a lot of that through Iron Age Inside once I launch that show. But getting that stuff together is hard because indie content isn't released as frequently as Hollywood stuff. So it takes time for stuff to actually, get made. And for me to get my hands on it. So it's something where I really want to be more positive, but the news coming out of Hollywood just isn't. People aren't making movies to dog on Hollywood for the sake of dogging on Hollywood. They're doing it because Hollywood refuses to change what they absolutely could. People are just covering what's there, and what's there is negative, so it is what it is. But thank you very much for watching. This has been Super Koopa TV with another Koopa Talks. Let me know what you think down in the comments. I will see you guys next time. God bless. Have a good one. Peace.